Buenas noches a todos. Welcome back to Tom Plays EU4 for absolute beginners, and we're just pressing the play button. So, diplomacy. Portugal wants an alliance. Okay, so I'm going to instantly pause again. The only problem with alliances and things is that at the start of the game you sometimes have to move quite fast to make them. So, let's just go over diplomacy. Right click on our own country and we've now got 2 out of 4 diplomatic relations. Got an alliance with Aragon and a royal marriage and alliance with Portugal. We do want a royal marriage with Aragon. There's another small country here called Navarra, which I think would be worth having an alliance and royal marriage with. So the only other thing is, unfortunately I don't believe we can get one with France. France sees us as a rival. I'd be nervous about getting an alliance with Brittany simply because France is likely to attack them. I'm actually wondering about one of the German nations, so I think Austria and Bohemia are often good options. Austria isn't keen, so it's worth checking here. Get this a lot with diplomacy. You'll tend to get a big cross or a big tick as to whether they accept something. If you actually hover over the cross or tick, it actually gives you the numbers involved in why they're not interested. And mostly with Austria it's because they just have a neutral attitude towards us. So that is something we can change. Bohemia is the same, but they already have too many diplomatic relations, which is what I was concerned about. That's why I hit pause again. Okay. Savoy is a possibility. So the other thing would be to check the disputed succession again, see if any of them are on this list. Even if we don't have an alliance, we could always get a royal marriage. I see Bohemia has disputed succession, so does Poland. To be honest, I think we'll just leave it in abeyance for now. So we've got 3 alliances: Portugal, Aragon and Navarra. Now Navarra's an interesting one because they have the option to be vassalised, which basically means they become a kind of subject nation. They'll join in with wars and things. So that might be an option. Often Aragon gets them first. And to be fair, with the Iberian wedding coming up, you know, we don't actually lose that much if Aragon beats us to it. So what basically happens with vassalisation, you need a tick here, which we're fine, but we also need to have them to have a plus 190 opinion of us. So that's our opinion of us, that's our opinion of them. So there are a few ways we can increase that to try and vassalise them. Making an alliance increases it a great deal. Royal marriage also helps. You see it's gone up again there. The most basic way to do it is you can actually dedicate a diplomat to improve relations. We have 3 diplomats, so there's a bit of a lull where we can't send another diplomat, but that is always a reasonable option. Which is something we could also do with Austria in order to try to get them more interested in an alliance. I might actually do that, improve relations with Austria, so we'll just set them going, because their main objection was that they have a neutral attitude towards us. So maybe if we just improve relations with them. Austria doesn't look that big, but by default they're actually the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. And they're a bit of a diplomatic powerhouse as well, so they're more powerful as a country than they appear. So moving units, I don't think I've actually mentioned it particularly, but you can move them by basically left clicking on the unit, usually on this little banner here, which tells you how many there are, and then you just right click where you want them to go. And more often than not I also select more than 1 at a time. So that's simple, you just click and hold and drag across like a box. Then you get both of them, details on both of them, and you can just move them across. One thing that's worth checking. Oh, one other thing. When they're all in one place, they're still not one unit. So to get them into one unit, which is usually what you want, you click and drag across them, so you get all of them, and then there's a button here, merge your selected units. One thing worth looking out for when moving units is every province has a supply limit. See, it's a yellow number near the bottom. You must always, where possible, make sure the supply limit is larger than the army you're moving to it. Otherwise the army will gradually take damage as it sits there. I think at the moment, because even our biggest army is only 16, every province in Spain has got a supply limit that can handle it. Zamora only just so. Have a look at, oh no, Leon. So if we move this army to Leon, a little skull will appear next to it and we'll start taking attrition damage. You want to avoid that, if at all possible. Right, so we've got a new alert. The new alert basically means we fulfill one of the missions on the mission tree, which will be this one, build to force limit. So we click on it, and we basically gained a few benefits for having fulfilled it. So for 25 years we've got better morale, which will be great for fighting wars, and a better land maintenance, which means it'll cost us less, which is brilliant because money is a huge concern. And we're now on to the next mission in that little line, which is expand Castile. That will probably take care of itself, I have to say. Okay. So, next. Right, I do want to do a diplomatic thing with Morocco. In fact, two diplomatic things. Let me just right click on Granada. We're going to want to attack Granada. Now there's an option here for declare war. You can safely click on this. It doesn't actually declare war yet. What it does tell you is what would happen if they did. So at the moment we would get some serious penalties for breaking a truce, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, apparently Portugal is guaranteeing them, which is interesting. It's actually saying if we attacked right now, Portugal would join in on the other side, which I've also never seen before. And also Tunis is an ally. Tunis is over here. So at the very least, assuming we can somehow get Portugal to change their minds about attacking, we will be fighting Tunis. However, there's a good chance that Portugal themselves will drag us into a war with Morocco. Portugal has a lot of concerns about Morocco, and we also would love to have some of these lands for reasons we'll get into a bit later. So what I want to do, because Tunis is a bit far away, we can't do as much with them. If we right click on Morocco, an option we haven't gone for before is build spy network. We can dedicate a diplomat to building a network of spies in Morocco. So I'm just going to do that. There's always a risk that they'll be found out, but the main reason I want to do it is I want to fabricate claims on some of Morocco's land, so that if we do get dragged into a war, we will more easily be able to claim land as part of the peace terms, assuming we win. I'm not doing that on Granada because I believe that when we finish this mission, prepare Reconquista, we will actually get claims on them anyway as a reward for the mission, so we don't need to send a spy. So cheating slightly because I just know what's going to happen there. Remember, we only need the full navy for this, which we're in the process of building, and for our manpower to recover to 60%. So we can basically achieve that by doing nothing. Okay, so where are we up to? We have royal marriages and alliances with all three of the countries around us, at least the friendly countries around us. It's worth mentioning, if we had managed to get France as an ally, which would have been brilliant, I would have been fabricating claims on these English provinces, because France and England are going to end up in a war. France would probably drag me into it, and if we could take these provinces from the English, we might be able to make a separate peace with the English and get these provinces. As it is, I imagine France is going to get them. I'm not about to fight a war with the English single-handed. Even though they're in a bad position right now, England and France are the big, powerful colonial powers. Militarily powerful. Fortunately, they tend to be fighting each other all the time, and there are various smaller nations around them. So hopefully we can just focus on colonising and not worry about them too much for the time being. Our main competitor is Portugal, who, like us, is an entirely colonising nation, but they're much smaller, so we do have an advantage here. Okay, so Austria is willing to have an alliance. They are rivals with France, which kind of makes sense. So I think, yeah, let's ally Austria. There is a danger they'll drag us into a war, but at the same time, they're on the other side of France, so if France does decide to attack us, or even if Aragon decides to attack us, although we're friendly with Aragon, Austria may well pitch in, whereas a lot of their wars are going to be so far away, we hopefully won't need to worry too much. Plus, as a minor side note, they're very good at royal marrying people, so if for any reason we ended up with one of them on the throne, a Habsburg, we could end up having the same dynasty as an awful lot of other countries, thanks to the Austrians. And the one place where EU4 cheats in our favour... Oh, need a new royal marriage of Aragon. That does happen. Is that a personal union generally will go in our favour rather than the computers. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing even to have a Habsburg on the throne. But on the whole, at the moment, we're just going to try and get our own dynasty, Trastamara, on all the thrones. Okay, brilliant. So that's most of what we can do with diplomacy. We should start improving relations with Navarre. Oh, they're already in a personal union with Aragon. Okay, right. In that case, stop improving relations. We probably don't need to improve relations with them the same. We would likely be better off improving them with Aragon themselves. So yeah, Aragon tends to be quite fast off the mark in taking control of Navarre. But it's not a problem, because it saves us some effort, and we will hopefully get them anyway when the Iberian wedding happens. I'd like to think that the Iberian wedding is even more likely to happen, given that we're friendly with them. So if you look, they already have a Trastamara on the throne. So we'd have a reasonable chance at a personal union of Aragon, even if the Iberian wedding event didn't exist. So we can just leave that. We can literally just leave it. Austria wants a royal marriage, of course they do. This is what the Habsburgs are famous for. Okay, so that covers most of diplomacy. You spy on your enemies. It's often a good idea to have fabricated claims ready for the nations around, just in case they attack you. It's generally best, apart from any spy networks you build, to always have diplomats improving relations. There's no real percentage in having a diplomat sat idle doing nothing. So ideally you want to always have this at 0 out of however many diplomats you have. Okay. So that's diplomacy. We're still stuck for 3 years, unable to attack Granada. So let's have a look at trade very briefly. So down here, oh, it might be worth noting, there are some alerts that are less important down here, and it actually tells us that Navarre became a lesser partner in a personal union under Aragon. And, alright, new monarch. So I wonder if it didn't start with a Trastamara. Maybe we've just been lucky there. Down here, there are 4, this is by default, there are 4 basic maps you can have. Now the most important one is political, which is what you start on, and that's our default. That's what we're mostly going to be looking at. This one next to it is trade. So that changes the shape of the world. If you look at political, we can see here all the different countries. If you look at trade, what we're seeing is trade provinces. So these are sort of areas, and they're centered around these trade nodes. And every country has got a home trade node. We actually share Sevilla with Portugal. As you can probably guess, we have a much better claim on it. We've got far more land within it, and we also have the actual port of Sevilla. But there are a few provinces in Morocco that are part of his trade node, so these are the ones we would really like to have, if possible. Portugal already has one of them, unfortunately, for us. On the plus side, the fact that Portugal shares Sevilla is that means that we will be working for the same goal. We will be wanting to bring as much money into Sevilla as possible. So I'm not going to go into massive detail on this at the moment, but it's worth being aware that this trade province exists, and this is why we will be fabricating claims on these areas. I know for a fact that Portugal, as part of their mission tree, will definitely want these two. We'd probably want them as well, but we would also like these two, so it depends how much conflict we want to have with Portugal. So yeah, we'll go into these in more detail, especially once we've got a trader and when we're deciding where to site our colonies. But for now, it's just being aware that these exist and that this is going to be a big part of our game, because we're primarily a trading nation, and a lot of our colonising is going to have the aim of making us better at trade. Okay, so I'm thinking, if we right click our diplomacy screen again, yeah, we're now down to 3 diplomatic relations again, because we've effectively broken our relationship with Navarra. They broke it by going into a personal union. So we're once again in the market for another diplomatic relationship. So we've got 3 alliances and royal marriages. I don't necessarily want another alliance, but it will be worth checking this link to see if there's anywhere we could have a royal marriage, perhaps. There's always a chance that a royal marriage will turn into us just getting a country for free. So it's never a bad thing, and we may as well use up that relationship that we have. So in Aragon is an obvious one because it's nice and nearby. We've got to remember, if we do take over a country, it would be nice if it was one we at least had reasonable access to. So there's Scotland, a few Irish provinces. Either might bring us into conflict with England, of course. So not ideal. Note that we can only choose from the Christian nations here. There are a few of the German nations. I wouldn't mind having someone a little bit closer to the sea, really. The other problem is that a lot of them won't accept a royal marriage without an alliance first, and I'm not that keen to have an alliance with most countries. So we may just find that there isn't anyone we can really go with. Let's check all the Irish provinces. Looks like we've got a big red cross on royal marriage for all of them. So, fair enough. Brittany, Provence, Genoa, Milan. Perhaps it's just not a feasible option. We could consider allying the Pope. These are the papal states, they're a little different to usual. We can't have a royal marriage, of course, because, you know, the Pope, well, isn't supposed to marry people. Some of the popes of this time period did. We will need to keep an eye on, if we're looking at people around this area, we don't necessarily want anyone that Austria dislikes. It might break our alliance with Austria. I think at the moment we've probably left it a bit long and everyone has plenty of diplomatic relations already and isn't willing to make another one. Which is fine, there's no massive drama here. The thing about the royal marriages is they rarely pay off unless you're really pushing them. Like at the moment, if Aragon still doesn't have a legal heir, I think we could in theory claim a throne, which would give us a casus belli, a reason for war, to attack them and take their throne by force. We do need to have more prestige than them to pull that off. At the moment our prestige is negative, so we could really do with getting that up at our first opportunity. Hopefully when we attack Granada that will help. But I'm not particularly inclined to do it with Aragon anyway, simply because I'm still expecting the Iberian wedding to happen, in which case we will get a personal union over them for free. And it can still happen for free, it's just a lot less likely. But because we're mainly a colonial and trading nation, at least that's how I'm going to play as. Spain, to be fair, once we become Spain with the Iberian wedding, we will be quite powerful militarily as well, especially if we also get Naples. But I probably won't take advantage of that because I really want to push the colonising. It's Spain's special ability, Castile's special ability really. So this to me is how you would normally play Castile, but it's worth bearing in mind you do have the option to go the other way and play as a normal European military nation with maybe just a bit of colonising on the side, more like how France and England are usually played. Okay, so we fulfilled another mission, trustworthy allies. Basically we have enough allies who like us. This is, I think, our first random event, so this could happen to anyone. Peasants getting uppity, and we can either enforce serfdom, which will cost us some administrative power but will make our nobles happy, or we can not do anything, which will make our nobles actually disloyal because their loyalty is currently 46, so that'll take them below 40, and we will lose some legitimacy, which isn't terrible because it's very high, but at the same time, with our prestige so low, I'd rather keep it high. Additionally, because we're trying to prepare Reconquista, if we gain loyalty from the army, we actually have an option on the Free Monarch Points page of raising additional levies, and we will gain enough loyalty here to get them to do this, which will bring us much closer to prepare Reconquista, because we need more manpower. So I think if we sacrifice the admin points and force serfdom, come over here, raise additional levies, that's taken to 41%, but they're still loyal, it's still neutral, and it's raised our manpower significantly. We are now not that far away from 60%, so we should have this prepare Reconquista fairly soon, and we will gain some automatic claims on all 4 of Granada's provinces. So that's perfect. I'm going to speed up time, staying ready to slow it down the second anything at all happens. Okay, we have lost one of our generals, not the heir. Perhaps unfortunately, if you remember, we made our heir a general because he's going to be a terrible king. So I'm just going to ask for another general. Definitely not make the king a general as well, that would be really dangerous. This unfortunately is going to cost us 50 military power, but we are going to need 2 for the war against Granada. So we have no choice but to do it. So very good at manoeuvre apparently, which is good, and actually good at sieging, which I think will be very handy. As I assume, I think these 2 middle provinces have got castles. Yeah, it has a fully maintained fort and has a capital fort. So that will actually help us a lot. Okay, so we finished prepare Reconquista. So we're gaining additional army and navy morale again, but we also gain a permanent claim on the Upper Andalusia area, which is all 4 of these. And this gives us a casus belli, a reason for war against Granada, so we actually have a justification now for conquering them, for declaring war. And just to make things even worse for Granada, they've just had an event, this is another historical event, but a bad one, where the Yusuf, the nephew of the current ruler, Mohammed, has raised an army and he is trying to take Granada over. So they're going to fight each other. Unfortunately, our spy, in fact let's just pause for a second, our diplomat in Morocco has been discovered building a spy network, which isn't good. It's reduced the size of our spy network to 26, so let's just go and look at that. If you see that message, you really need to pause the game and have a look at it, because if you hover over stop building spy network, you can actually see the size ours has got to. However, it's been reduced to 25. It tends to be blocks of 25 it goes down to, but it's going to go down every month. So until it reaches 0, I imagine. Certainly for long enough to seriously damage it. So if we don't want to waste the effort we've put into building this spy network, we need to use what we have as soon as possible before it decreases too much. So the only option we've got, which thankfully is what we want, is fabricate claim. So that costs us 20 out of 25. So we can fabricate a claim on all the provinces which are considered adjacent to us, including across the sea. So basically I think these 5. So I suppose it's a question of to whether we want to try to get ones which Portugal will also want, such as Tangier, or whether we should go for ones where we won't be fighting Portugal. I would rather have Tangier if possible. Let's put one in for Tangier. Okay, now I'm going to stop building the spy network so we get our diplomat back, because that's going to keep decreasing for a while. So we'll send another spy out there once it's had a bit of time to recover, but in the meantime we may as well increase our relationship with someone, such as Portugal. So let's just improve relations with Portugal. Finished building the navy. Just going to put those together. Just remember we've got some light ships as well who are out protecting trade. That's Portugal's. I think ours will be over here somewhere. Can't immediately see them, but they're just going to do their own thing until we tell them to do otherwise. This is our proud navy. So we have 4 heavy ships, which should be good for combat, and 11 transports, so we can transport 11 troops at a time, so we can't transport any of our complete armies. Okay, another historical event, a surrender of Maine. This is unusual. What's basically happened is England promised France this province, and because they haven't been handing it over, the French king has actually gone to the province himself, and it looks like England has actually backed down and handed the province over, which is unusual. Usually England and France go to war. I'm quite surprised because France was already embroiled in a war with Brittany. But there you go. I guess England feels they have their own problems. To be fair, if I'm playing England, certainly for a beginner, I'd probably recommend doing that, just handing it over. It's only one province, and England starts a war at a serious disadvantage. Okay, so this is the first aggression we've really seen. These black diagonal bars across this province show that it's currently occupied by uprisings, so in this case Granada and Pretender rebels. So this is his nephew. I mean, it looks like he's actually winning, which is interesting. This is some from Moldavia, who are a very long way away, so we don't really care that much. Doesn't really affect us. So it's possible if he manages to take all 4 provinces, he'll actually end up becoming the next ruler. Makes very little difference to us, except that the infighting weakens and shortly before we're going to attack. Remember, our truce only lasts until February 1448, and realistically we're going to attack as soon as the truce ends, because ideally we want to take this area as soon as possible. The only problem with that is if Poland is still guaranteeing them. Oh, hang on. Okay, here's a problem. So this is a drawback with having allies. Portugal wants to drag us into a war against Morocco and a bunch of other countries. Oh, I think all but one of them are... Oh, actually, possibly even all of them are actually vassals of Morocco, so it's not really a surprise. However, we don't really want to help Portugal take Tangier because we want Tangier. I suppose the one thing we could do is try and take Tangier first. if we occupy Tangier, I don't think Portugal can do anything to take it away from us. So on the one hand, we don't want to help them, and we were about to go to war ourselves. On the other hand, if we say no, we will lose 25 prestige, and our prestige is already very low. We might break our alliance with Portugal, and we will also lose diplomatic reputation, which is also quite important. So I think what I'm going to do is accept, and I'm just going to try and take Tangier myself. We almost certainly won't get to keep it. This is a problem. Okay, so this is interesting. We need to get across to Tangier as soon as possible. Now, our fleet cannot carry our entire army, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this button and split them in two. And we are literally going to move our army across to Tangier at the first opportunity. I'm going to move this army across as well. And my plan basically is to sit our troops on Tangier, take it has a fort, and we are just going to sit there and occupy it. So we're going to prevent Portugal from getting it. I might consider taking other provinces, but in an ideal world, I would like to do as little fighting as possible. Because any land that Portugal takes, we're just going to have to take back from them later. I know this is a bit cynical of me, but I've dealt with this before. We could help them against Morocco, Portugal will take a load of land, we'll be left with nothing. Oh! We can now get straight across. Right, so there's a bit of a concern because Portugal's also moving troops onto Tangier and has somehow managed to get there first. Not sure how that worked. Maybe because their troops were already on board a ship. So I'm not sure how the computer will decide which of us has officially occupied Tangier. I'm hoping that because we have more troops, it will be us. But it's possible they'll give it to Portugal because they got there first. Let's recombine this army. Okay. So our king has unfortunately died, and Enrique, who is currently running one of the armies, has taken over as king, which is very unfortunate because he's a terrible ruler. It actually says, "We have been cursed, God have mercy on us all." So there's nothing we can do. It's also caused our stability to drop to a negative number, which you must not allow, so we'd better boost it. So that was an alert saying your stability is negative. That's really not a good thing. Ideally, I like to have it on +1. It goes from -3 to +1. It's measured here as stability. It's very important. Yeah, you can have uprising and all sorts if you let it stay negative. So yeah, I suppose now we're basically sieging this. So if you actually left click on the province, usually you just get information about the province. Here we get information about the siege of Tangier. You see we've got a -21%. I think that's once a month of them surrendering. It basically rolls a random die roll and it tells you what the chances are in each case. So -21% basically means there's no chance of a surrender. They are not about to surrender. But there's a certain chance of other things, 50% chance of supply shortage, that sort of thing. Each one of those should make the chance of surrender a little higher. So we'll see. It's also worth noting that we're currently blockading this coast. Because we have our ships here and we're at war, we get a certain amount of money just from having ships blocking them in. The other reason I'm keeping my ship here is because it stops Moroccan forces from crossing this little bridge. It's not really a bridge in real life. I guess they must sort of assume that there are boats there or something. But under normal circumstances in EU4, you can actually walk across these little red lines. But if there's a hostile enemy navy there, it doesn't have to be big, the enemy is considered to be in control of the sea lanes there, and you cannot cross. So at the moment there is no way for Morocco to attack us, except by maybe going all the way around, or maybe loading troops onto boats. But if you load troops onto boats, we could attack them with our boats. Well, that's quite a decent navy. 4 heavy ships, yeah, they're more powerful than we are. On the plus side, Portugal is with us on this one, so we and Portugal each have a navy, so I'm kind of hoping we can scare them off at least. I'm just not going to be going to attack them. The weird thing is, it looks like they're actually fighting Tunis as well. So, seems like Morocco has got 2 wars going on. This is perhaps why Portugal attacked. Seeing a good opportunity, you see. So we're definitely not going to make our deadline for attacking Granada, thanks to Portugal. Just going to speed time up a little. If you watch near the siege itself, you should see which possibility gets rolled. Supply shortage just showed up there, and that increased the chance of surrender to 0. Which still no chance of surrendering, but at least next time something like supply shortage happens, it should go into positive numbers. And I guess we'll find out which of us is treated as having conquered it. However, my much bigger army gives me the conquering right. It's also worth noting that when we started the war, we weren't able to pass through Granada's land. One of the diplomatic things you can do is ask for military access through land. I don't usually have a problem with people asking for this. I think they do pay a small amount of money and it counts as a diplomatic relation. So you should always remember to cancel it once you no longer need it. This is where we would have been attacking Granada. But if your enemy successfully asks for military access in a war, you are then also allowed to go through. So I'm guessing Morocco requested military access and we started being able to go through as well. Okay, so very bad news for us. The computers assigned that victory to Portugal. So both of these bits of land are considered to be Portugal's, occupied by Portugal. So Portugal will be able to claim them as territory. So I've now moved my armies over here. Okay, so you can see we've claimed some territory as well now. What I'm actually thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my armies out, even though we're nominally helping, and I'm going to take the opportunity to declare war on Granada. Once we've dealt with this, our nobles are kicking off. Can expect this as Castile. So we've got 2 options. We can accept demands, in which case the provinces gain autonomy, which means we get less taxes and such like, but the nobles will gain loyalty. Or we can reject the demands and lose stability. I think on the whole I'd rather lose, as in gain the autonomy right now. Even though it won't make the nobles disloyal. Might be shoring up problems for ourselves. So something we could do, even though we haven't fabricated a claim, is try to make peace with Morocco separately. But I'm hoping that seeing as Portugal are already in a war, they'll be unwilling to help Granada. Let's just stop improving relations. We need a diplomat to declare war. So just getting one back. Alright, Portugal is not willing to help. They're fighting a war on the same side as the enemy. None of our friends, so-called, are willing to help. Aragon still has a truce. Portugal still has a truce, and Austria thinks it's too far away, which is fine. I think we've got a reasonable chance of taking on Tunis ourselves, and I don't want to risk Portugal allying later. So let's at least start with Granada. Okay, someone's trying to attack us. Oh, that's a Granadan navy. Fair enough. Looks like we're able to defeat them without too many issues though. Portugal's fighting the Moroccan navy. I kind of feel like maybe we should help. Naval battles do tend to take a while. But just in case we carry on being at war with Morocco for a while. I'm not really keen to have a very powerful Moroccan navy waiting out there. So when you're fighting in a battle... Oh! That was fast. You may have noticed there was a little morale bar. We can still see it. There's a little bar on the left that's got a little bit of red on the top. So green is full morale, red is completely lost morale. So if your morale bar reaches red entirely, so effectively goes to 0, you lose the battle. And your army is either destroyed or retreats. Okay. So because we've taken over this bit of land, their navy has been forced out of the port and into open water again, where we are able to attack them again. Ah, drat, we've lost the land we had claimed. On the plus side, it looks like Portugal might be about to lose the land they had claimed as well. Might just see if we can make a peace with Morocco. No. Shame. Never mind, as long as our navy is here, they will be unable to attack us. And if Morocco takes Tangier back, we will have another chance to take it, instead of Portugal taking it. There's no way for us to take the land from Portugal, but we can take the land... Morocco can take the land from Portugal, and then we can take the lands from Morocco. The interesting thing here is that we could do with getting our army over to Tunis, really. It's whether we can do that without having to fight Morocco on the way. Still, need to do these sieges first. So I think this was the general we had who had siege ability. So hopefully this one will go first. And I imagine in this time Morocco will successfully take back Tangier as well, which is interesting. Maybe Portugal will even make peace with them and we'll just restore the status quo. Okay, what do we have? Strategic marriage. Oh, nice. Does that mean we now have a Habsburg on the throne? Oh, we do. We have, yes. So that's interesting. Normally that would be a bad thing and a triumph for Austria. But because the computer gives us an advantage in political unions, this might actually be a really good thing for us. Because the Habsburgs do tend to royal marry everyone, so we could end up with the same dynasty as a lot of other people. That's going to be interesting. It doesn't mean we no longer have the same dynasty as Aragon, so I hope it's not going to interfere with the Iberian wedding event. But we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. Quite surprised Portugal's not attacking them, because at the moment, because there's a castle and Portugal's occupied the land, Portugal would have the advantage. And they do have a better general. You see it's 2 stars compared to Morocco's 1. Oh, we can ask Aragon to join in. I am going to do that. Please do, because there's a chance they might attack Tunis. And if we can get Tunis conquered, we will maybe be able to take all 4 of these in one go. Get it all dealt with. That would be brilliant. I think I like having Aragon as an ally. Far better ally than Portugal tends to be. Apologies to anyone from Portugal. I think it's partly because they're a big competitor in colonialism as well. But mostly at the moment it's the constant dragging us into wars with Morocco. Portugal are very keen to take Morocco as part of their mission tree. Castile, we do want to do that, but it's further down the mission tree, and I'd be happy to wait until we've colonised a lot of places and we're a lot more powerful before we try it, but Portugal will keep trying to drag you in. And the problem is that as Portugal, because Castile tends to be your more powerful ally, that's kind of part of the strategy. So I don't blame them. I do the same thing when I'm playing Portugal, try to get Castile to fight Morocco with me, or for me even, but as Castile it's a bit annoying. But at the same time we do need allies, and Portugal is a very good historical friend and technically a good ally. So you tend to be a bit torn how to feel about Portugal. Okay, so 50% chance of this castle surrendering. It actually counts down to the next siege phase. So it's not, I think, exactly on the month. Maybe it's every 30 days from the start of the siege, roughly. Still hasn't fallen. I didn't actually see what happened. It's probably status quo, I think. Unusually, there doesn't seem to be any danger of a disease outbreak. So that's usually the 1% chance bad thing that just depletes the attacking army. So you never want to see that when you're sieging someone. But it doesn't appear to be any chance. There we go, we have won. So I'm just going to move our army over to help with the other siege. I don't suppose Aragon are attacking, are they? Nope, fair enough. Can't honestly say I blame them. Part of me does wonder if I ought to be... At the moment we've probably got access through these lands because they're enemy lands. Oh! So I'm wondering if I want to move my armies through before there's any danger of us making peace with Morocco, because it's an easy way to get our armies into the lands of Tunis. Okay, the Renaissance. This is another thing that happens in EU4. It's called an institution. We get a number of these happening. They'll start in a particular country. The Renaissance pretty much always starts in Italy. In fact, I can probably just click this changes everything. So this is wound up with technology. So we haven't really looked at this yet. This is the main thing that monarch points are for. They're very important, and we can basically get technology in the three areas. The standard three areas: administrative, diplomatic and military. Military is essential. You must make sure that your military technology level, ours is currently 3, never falls behind that of your rivals, and ideally any adjacent country. You can actually see it by going to the diplomacy screen, and we can see here, so this is admin, diplomacy and military, 3 in all 3 cases. Okay. Going to very tentatively... Oh, I can't. Oh, I see. It's because Morocco has a castle in the way. This castle here. So we actually need to take this castle to gain access to the lands of Tunis, or once we've moved our armies into Tunis' land, we could just make peace with Morocco. So we do seem a little ahead, so it's possible they'll be willing to make peace. Looks like Portugal are finally fighting. Well, that's interesting. So maybe we could actually take Tangier now, because we do have a claim on Tangier, and if it was down to them being there first, we might be in with a real chance of taking it. Okay. Give it a go. Now, Aragon are, I think, involved in our war with Tunis, but not with Morocco. So they may, if we're lucky... Austria's attacking Venice. If we're lucky, they, and Naples is counted them in that because they're a vassal of Austria. They may actually start attacking Tunis for us, because they could probably walk straight through Morocco's castle. Oh, that's a Granadan province. I didn't actually realise Granada owned that province. I probably don't have a claim on it, unfortunately. That is interesting. But it will certainly help. So, yes, so institutions. So if we right-click, diplomacy screen, 333, but the really important one is military. We're also on 3. Portugal's on 3, so 3 is basically the standard right now. But we need to make sure that we don't allow our enemies to get ahead of us. If we're ahead, that's great, but if we're behind, you may find that you lose battles that you would have expected to win. So, something to watch out for anyway. Okay, so institutions. So on the technology screen we have this button for institutions, and they will start somewhere. So here the Renaissance started in Cremona, and it's sort of spreading out from there. They spread in different ways, but you can sort of see the spread by these diagonal green lines. So I think most developed countries have got a bit of a head start on this one. So the spreading really isn't something you need to worry about. What it affects is how much it costs you to embrace it. So we can't embrace it at the moment because we don't really have it in any countries at all. It's just Poland. In any provinces at all. But once we do, we will start getting a very high cost, thousands of ducats, in order to embrace it. This is another reason we do need to have money. So it's just something to bear in mind. We need to keep our money levels up so we can embrace new institutions. Okay. Right. I'm going to split up and try and take these 2 provinces from Morocco. And then I'm seriously thinking that I might try to make peace with them. Because I wouldn't put it past Portugal to make peace with them and give us nothing. No matter what lands we have claims on, no matter what provinces we're currently occupying. The nice thing is that certainly with no DLCs, Portugal can't now take this land. So I'm being a little mean. Speed up time a little. Oh, they're moving out of there as well. Good job for him. Right, we've gained a skill 2 trader. Oh, actually, they might be worth having. So they're cheaper to employ. Let's look, because usually skill 2 traders are too expensive for us. So if we head here, we don't have the too few advisors alert, but you can get to the same place by clicking on the court tab. So we've got our current terrible king, but we don't really want to get rid of him necessarily because maybe we should, because our heir isn't old enough to take the reins. Man, you maybe a regency council would be better, so I might consider it. So we have current +1 advisors. We're gaining 1.11 a month, but our current advisor is... Oh, brilliant. Okay, you move there. I'm going to move you into Tunis's land. So I'm going to try and take Melilla as well now, because Portugal hasn't taken it. That is going to force Morocco to set off, but I'm hoping we can make peace in Morocco as soon as I've taken it. Part of me is honestly wondering if we should be making peace already. Because if Portugal makes peace with them first, we could potentially lose everything. They're only willing to give us Tangier, though, at the moment. I'll go into that a bit in a second, but yeah, I think this new advisor, because they're cheaper, so they're going to cost twice as much as our current advisor, but not 4 times as much as usual, and they're actually a trade efficiency advisor, which generally makes you money. So I think we can afford this, because it's only 1 ducat a month extra. So we're still in positive money, but bear in mind we're currently in a war. So we're actually spending more money because all of our castles have become unmothballed. If you remember the mothball castles option we had, that gets undone automatically when you start a new war. It also puts your army maintenance and fleet maintenance sliders to the top instantly. So you tend to find you're spending more money in a war. You can actually get around that by raising war taxes, which is here, but it will cost 50 military points. So I'm a little antsy about doing it when we're actually still making a profit, however small. So, okay, we have now made serious progress on Morocco. I would love it if we could somehow claim all 3 of these provinces. Seems unlikely, but it really would be great. However, I think once we've got our troops over to Tunis land, our best bet might be to just make peace with Morocco anyway. Yeah, we can't actually move anywhere, but we can at least get here. Apparently we're being blockaded by someone. Note I haven't stepped in to help Portugal this time. I feel a bit bad about it, but I'm also about to pull out of a war in Morocco, so they can't necessarily expect too much. Thankfully for us, it does look like Aragon is getting quite into this war, so we may not even need to fight Tunis much. The reason I want my troops in Tunis lands before we make peace is that if it's still in Morocco's or Morocco's allies' lands when we make peace with Morocco, I think they'll be flagged as exiled, which is something we'll doubtless see later on. And it's just a bit of a problem. For some reason the game forces you to march your troops back to your own land and then march them back out to your enemy again. And we'll probably need to use boats to get to the enemy, and it's just going to be messy. Whereas I'm hoping if both my troops are sat here when we make peace, I can carry on just attacking Tunis. So let's try it out. So there's still only, let me just, okay, so I didn't go into this in any detail. You right click, diplomacy screen again, and where we'd normally have declare war, we now have sue for peace. And there's an option for suggest demands. So this often gives you something reasonable that they would accept. You see the acceptance again, it's a big tick. And they will be willing to give us Tangier and also a bit of money. You can clear the offer and try to make one of your own. However, they're not willing to give us 2 provinces. Yeah, demands exceed war score, current peace offer, length of war. So it kind of leaves me wondering. Now, to be fair, we will probably have more fights with Morocco in future, and this is the only province we actually have a claim on. So I might just try and put the money up as much as I can before it becomes a cross. So there we go, still a tick. Send demand. Brilliant. You do have to, right, so we haven't got anyone exiled. So we can now start helping in the battle against Tunis. We've got a bunch of new alerts. I didn't point this one out. This one is country is at war, which is a rather pointless alert because we knew it was at war. Actually, I want to move our ships round to blockade them as well. Yeah, I think we can do that. 8 of their ships are transports, 3 of them are light ships, whereas we, I believe, have 4 heavy ships. So in terms of military ships, we vastly outnumber them. So unfortunately it does mean it is possible for Tunis to march troops across here now. However, realistically it's not going to happen. We are vastly outnumbering them and completely blockading this area. So it's looking pretty good. Aragon is proving a good ally. Okay, so what other alerts have we got? We've got an alert here saying that one of our ports is being blockaded. I suspect that will be Gran Canaria. Nope. Okay, in which case I'm not sure which port it actually is. But not to worry, I'm not too worried about it at the moment. This just means we've suffered casualties, so we're repairing them. You may notice our manpower has now gone down to 0. We've used up all our reserves of people, so it's going to take us much longer to build our troops back up to full strength. corruption is growing. That's quite important. So we need to click on that. It takes us to the economy screen, and we just need to click and hold on this slider, slide it up until that goes yellow or green. There we go. We're also now losing money, so I think maybe we should do war taxes? No, maybe not. We'll stick with the military power. We've got enough money in store to cope for now. Okay, other alerts. The other new ones, this one is we can build province improvements, but there's nothing very useful to build just yet. So I'm going to keep this moving in, keep taking land. And this one means that we've gained a new province and it doesn't have a core. That's also very important. You shouldn't leave them like that. It adds to this overextension score, which has a number of negative effects. It costs administrative power to make something a core, but it's always worth it. At least in lands that you're permanently going to own. We'll cover the colonial nations later. So yeah, that's going to take some time, but it will slowly be turned into a core. Being a core basically means we've absolutely got a claim on this now. It's considered our land in everyone's eyes. Peace offer from Granada, not very keen. What I'm basically planning to do... No, royal marriage offer from Portugal. No problem there. What I'm basically planning to do is conquer Tunis, because we're doing quite well now. With Aragon on our side, and ideally get this war score down here up to 100%. They keep track of this score called a war score, and the higher it is, it can go up to 100, the better a deal you can make when you're making peace. So given that we are overwhelmingly winning now, there's no real reason for us to stop the fight until this gets to 100. So yeah, we'll just keep it going, especially because we haven't raised war taxes, because the other problem with raising war taxes is that it does make our citizens get sick of war faster. In this case, we can probably keep this war going for quite a while before we need to worry about it. Castle's holding out quite well. Okay, so Tunis wants peace. So if you do want to check a peace offer, you just click on the alert, and this is what they tell us. They're going to pay us a certain amount of money. 330 ducats. The thing is, we can easily get more. Or maybe we can't. I honestly don't know. Maybe that's all the money they have. Realistically, I think money is all we're likely to get out of Tunis. We don't have any claims, and I don't think this piece of land is really considered adjacent because its port is there on the Barbary coast. So I don't think there's a lot we can do with Tunis in terms of claiming land or anything like that. We can certainly have a look at the options, but as things stand, I don't think we have much choice. So this shield down here with a war, it's worth having a look at this. We can see our side, we're at the top because we're the principal combatant. Their side, Granada's at the top because they're the principal combatant that we attacked. We can actually make a separate peace with Tunis to Granada, which is often worth it because we can take some money from Tunis and then Granada will also have a 100% war score. We know war? Okay, that's a historical event that's just positive. So we'll just accept that. Generally, this is important, war enthusiasm. If an ally has medium or low, you can often get them to make peace separately. And if you're not overwhelmingly winning, it can be worth it just to make sure you are overwhelmingly winning, because the ally will leave the war. So it's worth keeping an eye on this screen. Boom. Sorry, I just noticed Aragon is in combat at a castle and losing. I'm hoping I can get my troops there in time to help. Going to be a bit close. That was a little careless of Aragon there. You can see the arrow filling in as we slowly... Oh, Aragon got reinforcements there first. Brilliant. So Aragon actually won on their own. Nonetheless, I'm nearly there now, so I'll go and help with the siege. Still waiting for this siege to finish. But yeah, it's perhaps worth noting, because we may not see this again for a while. Sorry. When you have a troop selected, you can see that the provinces next door to a fort all have these little castles on them. What that actually means is that if the castle isn't currently being sieged, the castle itself will claim back these lands from occupation, just by virtue of being next door. So it's often not worth taking these lands unless the castle is under siege or about to be. So it's worth bearing in mind, if we all left the siege now, this land would slowly be lost to us. What's Granada offering? They're offering the 4 provinces we have a siege on. So I mean, we could accept that, but we could also push for this province as well, which they'd call full annexation. The thing we need to watch is whenever we take provinces from someone, it increases a score called aggressive expansion, which is a measure of how the other nations view you, whether they see you as a warmonger. And taking provinces that you didn't have a claim fabricated on pushes that up quite a bit. However, I think we can probably get away with just 1. So, yeah, I'm quite inclined to do it, to be honest. But we'll see. Our war score's creeping up a little bit more. I think we should increase the time. So one of these sieges ends. Okay, England has fabricated a claim on this land here, which is next to England's provinces, and we have won a siege. Brilliant. I'm just going to take this piece of land. It's worth noting that because Aragon doesn't have any claims on this land, they're actually taking it all in our name. So they're being a very good ally. And having won a siege, the war score's jumped up to 90. Taking castles really makes a difference to war score. Okay, we've gained a new alert. So this is war exhaustion. This is a measure of how sick our citizens are of a war. You can reduce it manually, but generally it's just a warning that it really is time to start packing the war in, if you can. However, we do have a 7% chance of this siege just ending, as it is. It does seem like it would be a shame to end it there, if our citizens can just hold out for a little longer. We do make bits of money by occupying enemy provinces as well as by blockading them with ships. So you can make quite a bit of money in war. You can also lose a fair bit as well, of course, as it costs money to replace all your troops and things like that. It's Granada again, trying to make peace. Tell you what, I'm not happy about this. I'm going to go and block them off. I don't know if you see the little padlock here. That shows they're committed to moving to that area, so it's quite good if you're trying to attack someone, because you can wait for the padlock to appear and then move to the area they're moving to, and you will almost certainly catch them and force them to fight you. Okay, brilliant. Right, I'm going to move these... Oh, hang on. No, that's a wasteland, so we can't cross that and we can't occupy it. I'm going to move that army over to help with this siege, which will hopefully be over very soon. We just gained yet another new alert. Invest in new technology. So these generally you should always take, and this one's a military one. So we're now on military technology 4, which gives us, I think, an advantage over our enemies. So that is brilliant. You see it's used up all of our monarch power there, all of our military power. Okay, we have won the siege of Kef. We've got 99% war score. I think that's enough. So we're going to make a separate piece of Tunis. Suggest demands. Yeah, 330 was all the money they had. We do have this option for transferred trade power, which they will also accept. And oh, we can force them to release a state. So a country they'd previously taken can become a new country who will possibly like us. Okay, so I'm going to start moving our troops back. You can usually get straight home from an enemy area after a war. Okay, right, this is a new option, Defender of the Faith. I don't want to take this. We've got it because we're a loyal Catholic and we've got 500 ducats. However, you can very easily be pulled into wars by this. Basically, any time a Christian fights someone who isn't a Christian, in fact, even a Roman Catholic fights anyone who isn't a Roman Catholic, they can try and pull you into the war. Or at least if someone attacks them, and because we're not playing as a big military power, I'd rather not risk it. Okay, sue for peace with Granada. The suggested demands are to cede us the 4 provinces we had claims on. But if we click on this province, we can actually claim that as well. I don't think there's anything else we can do because we're basically taking everything they have. So, yeah, that's everything. Okay, so our corruption has gone up considerably, so that's going to cost us some money. We can now buy ships for less money, temporarily. So that's just a random event, but that is good news. Okay, so we've got make calls again. We should make these immediately to try and fight off the terrible overextension we've got. Our war exhaustion is now going down, you can tell by the arrow. So although it's a little high, it will come down as time goes on. So we're just going to try to weather it out. We've fulfilled the mission Reclaim Andalusia. So we've now gained a bunch of new claims, permanent claims, I have to say. Unfortunately, some of them are on Aragon and Portugal, I think. Yeah, they are. Never mind. So that's going to cause friction, I imagine. But nonetheless, it has fulfilled an additional mission. Okay, so military actions in Portugal, no problem at all. So worth noting is this flag. This is the You Have Exiled Armies flag. Now, I did mention you can always get home after the war. I'm going to quickly intervene here because the problem is the minute they enter this province, which we now own, they will be stuck there until we send a boat to bring them back. Temporarily, we can bring them all the way home without any boats. Unfortunately, I think we're actually about to attack some separatists in Morocco. Oh no. No, we don't count, sorry. Thank goodness for that. Nope. This way, please. I'm going to have to carefully shepherd them. No, I'd forgotten. Exiled armies don't interact with other armies. They can't fight or anything. So you need to keep an eye out for this flag because you might find yourself trying to siege a castle, not paying attention and realising you spent 100 years with your army effectively doing nothing. Right, okay, so next moves. I would like to make some more claims on Morocco. So I'm going to start building a spy network there. Might build a spy network on Tlemcen as well, simply because they're only a one province nation. So unless they get some decent allies, it might actually be worth us taking them. Lost a general again. Not sure we actually need one right now. Very frustrated that we still haven't lost Enrique. This terrible king of ours, I'm honestly thinking a Regency Council might be a better option. So we'll probably see this at some point, but a Regency Council basically happens if your ruler dies and has no heir. You end up with a Regency Council taking over. It's a lot less likely with certain DLCs because they allow the consort to take over, so the king or queen, depending. whoever wasn't the ruler, but with no DLCs. Oh, where am I driving? No problem. Until our heir is age, I think around 14ish, we are in danger of a Regency Council. The main problem with them is that you can't declare war. You can join in wars, but you can't declare them. So it can be a bit of a nuisance. But it's not the end of the world. Right, I am going to move my biggest army to Malaga. Smaller army. I might actually put in Tangier. I thought it does increase the chances that we'll have an uprising there, but I do want to mothball the forts, so it'd be a good idea to have them on areas where there's forts, so there's no danger of people taking them. Okay, so with mothball forts we're just barely making money. On the plus side, we do have a fair bit of money. So yeah, I was actually not expecting to be fighting in this session. We've gone horribly over. Sorry about that, but it didn't seem a good time to stop when we were midway through some wars. So I will certainly stop there. That was surprisingly successful actually. We managed to steal Tangier out from under Portugal, which is mean but saves time. And we've also gained an additional province on top of the ones Granada normally gives us, because Granada for some reason owned this province. So we've got a couple of provinces in North Africa, which I had no expectation of getting particularly. So next moves we're going to start making claims on these two provinces. I might just send improved relations with Aragon and, oh, I guess just with Portugal. I'm not sure where our other diplomat is. Of course, we've got a spy network building over here. But yeah, other than that, I will leave it there and see you next time.